I've been a nurse for a while now, but working night shifts at the old hospital always felt different. It was gloomy, with flickering lights that buzzed like flies. The smell of antiseptic mixed with something unpleasant filled the air. I usually handled everything well, but what happened a few weeks ago still haunts me. On my third night shift, I was making my rounds when I heard a faint rustling from the pediatric ward. At first, I thought it was my tired mind playing tricks on me. I glanced over and saw a shadow cross the doorway. I shook my head, convincing myself it was nothing. I returned to my patients, thinking it was all in my head. As the shifts went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something weird was happening. The rustling became whispers. They were low and almost melodic. I felt chills as I walked past the rooms. I could hear the patients murmuring about unsettling dreams. It made me uneasy since hospitals aren't known for being cozy places. Little things started to catch my attention. Bed sheets that weren't tucked in as tightly as I left them. A toy that a little girl dropped suddenly appeared on her nightstand. Each night, I could feel a presence in those empty rooms, the unsettling feeling that something was watching me. My heart raced when I approached the old supply closet. It felt different, somehow alive. One night, while I was checking a young boy who was tossing and turning, I heard a soft whisper. Jordan. My name echoed in my ears. I looked around, but the windows were shut tight. I felt a chill run down my spine. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. Maybe I was just really tired. I didn't share what was happening. Who would believe me? I was the comforter, not someone who felt scared. Yet every shift, I felt something hover over the patients as they slept. Was it protective? Or something darker? The thought nagged at me. A few nights later, while walking past the pediatric ward, I stopped. I turned back to the doorway, holding my breath. That's when I saw it. A figure stood in the hallway, staring at me. I blinked, and it vanished. My heart raced. Was I imagining things? I felt cold and confused. I didn't know what to think. I decided to continue my shift, pushing those feelings aside. But the rest of the night was a blur of fear. I checked on my patients, but all I could feel was the weight of that figure in my mind. As the days went by, the whispers grew louder. I thought about what I had seen, and I felt the presence pulling me in deeper. I wanted to understand it, but I was terrified. The hospital, with its creaking floors and buzzing lights, felt like a different world, one that was no longer just about healing. When I looked out into the quiet hallways, it was just me. I didn't know if anything would happen again. I could sense something watching the patients sleep. It was unnerving. In a place meant for healing, I felt anything but safe. I walked into the hospital one cold night, gripping my coffee like a lifeline. I had to get through this shift. My mind was foggy, full of remnants from the recent days. The whispers were stronger now, stirring in my thoughts when I tried to focus. After settling at my station, I walked the halls with the usual routine. The pediatric ward was still and dark, but I could almost hear the soft music of chatter, treble and bass, mixing like a haunting lullaby. Each time I passed, I felt a brush of tension, as if an invisible hand was reaching out to me. The feeling was odd, stirring curiosity right alongside fear, pushing me to investigate further. That night felt heavier than others. I don't know why I chose to check the supply closet, but something drew me there like a moth to a flame. The old wooden door creaked when I pulled it open, a slice of darkness greeting me. I fumbled for the light switch. It flickered on with a buzz, revealing shelves stacked with dusty supplies. I scanned the room, uncertain of what I might find. Maybe it was exhaustion, but shadows clung to the corners, writhing as if alive. I held my breath, and just as I turned to leave, I spotted it, a small picture lying on the floor. I picked it up, and a shiver ran through me. It was a faded photo of a girl, maybe 7 or 8, her smile bright against a dark background. I didn't recognize her, but something about her eyes felt achingly familiar, a spark of recognition, or perhaps just unease. I pocketed the photo, my heart racing. Was this little girl part of the whispers? Part of the presence looming in the shadows? As I turned to exit the closet, the lights flickered again, and the door slammed shut behind me. Panic surged through me. I pulled at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. My breath quickened, and the room felt smaller. My thoughts raced. I pounded against the door. "Let me out!" Then came the whisper again, soft and insistent. "Jordan." The voice was almost melodic, and I felt it wrapping around me like a thick fog. Suddenly, the lights blinked out, plunging me into complete darkness. I froze, the only sound my own uneven breaths. I blinked, willing my eyes to adjust, but nothing changed. Then, through the darkness, I saw a faint glow. It illuminated a small figure standing in the corner of the closet. My heart pounded as I fought the urge to scream. That's when I realized the little girl from the photo was standing in front of me. It was her. A smattering of hope mingled with dread. "What do you want?" I managed to whisper. She raised a tiny hand and pointed at something behind me. I turned slowly, and just as I looked back at the void, the lights flashed back on. The closet door swung open. I stumbled back into the hallway, gasping for air, but the girl was gone. I stood there, my mind scrambling. I needed answers. Someone must know who she was. But one thing was clear. I was no longer just dealing with a feeling. There was a story here, and I was right in the middle of it. The morning shift rolled in, bringing sunlight that made my eyes squint. I hadn't slept, not after what had happened in the supply closet. The photo of the little girl sat heavily in my pocket. My colleagues bustled around me, sharing chatter that felt like a distant hum. I forced a smile when one of the nurses asked if I was all right, but inside, my mind raced. I needed to find out who she was. I walked into the break room, poured the strongest coffee I could manage, and took a moment to collect myself. My phone buzzed with messages from friends checking in, but I ignored them. This was a distraction I didn't need. Instead, I headed to the hospital library, an often overlooked space filled with dusty journals and old records. The door creaked as I entered, and the smell of aged paper wrapped around me like an old blanket. I grabbed a chair and started flipping through old patient files, scouring for anything that might mention a child. A girl with a smile that felt too familiar. Hours went by. I found records of past patients, but caught nothing that connected to her. My frustration mounted. I was about to give up when I remembered the pediatric ward. Maybe someone there knew something. I walked back through the halls, determination in each step. I found Dr. Morrison, a pediatrician with a reputation for knowing every child who had ever been treated at the hospital. "Dr. Morrison," I said, catching him just as he prepared to leave for rounds. "Do you have a moment?" "Sure, Jordan," he replied, his brow furrowing at my serious tone. "What's on your mind?" "It's about a little girl. I found her picture last night." I hesitated, unsure how to explain. "I think she's connected to the hospital. What can you tell me?" Dr. Morrison's expression shifted, and I saw something pass over his face. Was it recognition? "What did she look like?" he asked cautiously. "Around 7 or 8, dark hair, bright smile," I answered, excitement bubbling in my chest. "I don't know her name." "I might need to look something up," he said slowly, a frown forming on his face. "But it's important you understand something. Some stories here are complicated." I nodded, sensing that my instincts were leading me deeper into something I didn't fully comprehend. Just as he turned to the records, the lights flickered. My heart jumped. Hadn't they just fixed the electrical issues here? "Back in a moment," he said, heading into his office. I stood alone, anxiety creeping in. The whispers were returning, softly dancing at the edges of my consciousness. I focused on the shelves of books, but even those felt like they held secrets, each spine a mystery, each page unread a potential answer. Then I heard it. A faint giggle. It echoed through the darkening hall. I wheeled around, scanning for the source. "Hello?" I called out, heart pounding. No reply, just the echo of laughter. Then everything went dark again. Panic set in. "Dr. Morrison!" I shouted, but my voice seemed swallowed by a growing silence. That's when I felt it, a cold breath against my neck, as if someone was right behind me. I turned, heart racing, but the only thing there was, the pitch-black void. I realized too late that I wasn't alone. Someone, or something, was watching. I stood frozen in the darkness, heart hammering like a drum, my breath caught in my throat. The giggle echoed again, this time closer, more playful, ringing out like a haunting lullaby. "Who's there?" My voice was barely a whisper, growing swallowed by fear. The lights flickered back to life, but they only revealed the stillness of the library. Books lined the walls, patient files sat undisturbed, and the only movement was a small cloud of dust motes dancing in the beams of light. My relief was short-lived as confusion flooded me. Had I really heard a laugh? I shook my head, trying to catch my breath. I was alone. I had to be. I made my way to Dr. Morrison's office, a slight tremor in my hands. Was I imagining it all? As I reached the door, ready to knock, I decided to lean in and listen. "Dr. Morrison?" I called softly, peering through the glass. He was hunched over a file, his brow knitted in concentration. But something else caught my eye. A photo album laid open on his desk. Curiosity got the best of me. I tapped on the glass gently, hoping he'd look up. Instead, he flipped a page, still oblivious, and I leaned closer. The edges were tattered, and the pictures seemed worn from time. But when I caught a glimpse of the child smiling back at me, a familiar pang grasped my chest. It was her, the girl from the photo. I stepped back, suddenly dizzy. "That's her, Dr. Morrison!" I called again, louder this time, as the urgency spurred me forward. He finally looked up, eyes wide as if snapping out of a trance. "Jordan, what is it?" he asked, rising from his chair. "The photo. The girl. Is she—" I started but hesitated, the weight of my words almost too heavy to bear. What was I even asking? Was she okay? Was she gone? He held up a hand to stop me. "Not here," he said, glancing around like someone might be eavesdropping. "You need to understand this isn't something you take lightly." The color drained from my face. "What do you mean?" He motioned for me to follow him. Stepping out of the office and into the hallway again, the fluorescent lights flickered slightly overhead, but Dr. Morrison walked briskly, ignoring them. "There are some things related to that child that are better left undiscussed." His voice was gravelly and serious. "Why?" I asked, desperation creeping into my tone. The whispers in my head returned, growing louder, pressing against my sanity. "I need to know what happened to her." He stopped abruptly in front of a locked door leading to the outdated archives. "If you truly want to find out, you need to be prepared for what you will learn." There was a heaviness in his gaze, a quiet warning. "Tell me," I insisted, feeling like I was tumbling down a well of confusion. "What are you hiding?" That's when a loud crash echoed through the hospital. The lights flickered one last time before plunging the hallway into darkness, and I felt the air grow colder around us. My resolve shattered as I grabbed his arm, fear spilling out into the empty space around us. "Something's wrong," I gasped, glancing over my shoulder. "We have to go." Dr. Morrison wasn't moving. Instead, his eyes widened in shock, and he turned slowly to look behind me. "It shouldn't be here," he murmured. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see what shadow lurked in the dark. But fear compelled me, and as I turned, a shift in the air sent icy dread coursing through my veins. What I faced would either haunt me or push me to uncover all the secrets I should have left buried. I felt it again, that playful giggle now mixed with a sinister undertone. I took a shaky breath, preparing for whatever lay ahead. The darkness wrapped around us like a heavy blanket, thick and suffocating. My heart raced, echoing in my ears as I tried to pierce through the gloom. "Dr. Morrison, what's happening?" I whispered, but he didn't respond. His expression had turned from confusion to dread. Then I heard it again, that giggle, light yet chilling. It seemed to tease us, dancing just beyond the reach of the flickering lights. My breath quickened, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lurked in the dark was waiting for us to make a move. Without thinking, I pushed past Dr. Morrison, bolting down the hallway. "We need to get out of here," I cried, glancing back only once. His expression seemed to combine concern and fear, a mix that propelled me to move faster. I heard footsteps behind me, quick and light. I could feel the air shift, as if something was chasing us. I stumbled into a broad corridor, the tiles cold against my bare feet. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. "Jordan, stop!" Dr. Morrison shouted, finally catching up to me. "Go to the main entrance. I'll catch up." I hesitated. Every fiber of my being screamed to keep moving, but I knew that abandoning him wouldn't help. "What about the archives?" I gasped, wanting the answers that lingered just out of reach. "Some truths aren't worth the price." His voice was firm, but I could see the tremor in his hands. I could feel the pull of curiosity mixed with dread. What did he mean by the price? Just then, the giggle morphed into a high-pitched wail, piercing through the silence. It was a sound that echoed from all around, enveloping me in a cocoon of panic. I felt a jolt of terror surge through me, overriding any sense of caution. God, what is happening? Grasping Dr. Morrison's arm, I narrowed my eyes. If we're leaving, we need to leave together, right now. I felt a rush of air, a force that brushed past us like a whisper. Then I spotted it, a shadow darting around the corner, quick as lightning. My instincts kicked in. "Did you see that?" I shouted, desperately searching his face for reassurance. "Yeah," he whispered, his voice hollow. "We can't let it get to us." As we moved carefully down the corridor, I noticed something flickering at the far end. A flickering light that once belonged to the discharge station. The chance for escape shimmered like a beacon amidst the chaos. But as I moved closer, I felt something stop me in my tracks. I was pulled towards the archives. Just then, the lights sputtered out completely, and the darkness became palpable. I couldn't see a thing. That's when something cold wrapped around my wrist. Panic surged as I yanked away. "Jordan!" Dr. Morrison's voice broke through the silence, laced with urgency. "I can't see! Something's—" Then, as if waiting for the perfect moment, that giggle sounded again, right next to my ear. The laughter was chilling, ice cold on my skin. I gasped and turned, and that's when I saw it. A figure, small and ghostly, grinning at me from within the void. Everything crashed all at once. The darkness, the laughter, the icy touch. And then everything went silent. I drew in a breath, trying to steady my fraying nerves, but my heart was on fire. In that moment, I realized I had to make a choice. Stand my ground against whatever this was, or flee and lose myself in the maze of fear. Somehow, I felt like the answers I sought were buried deep in the shadows staring back at me. The silence stretched heavy around me, wrapping me in a cocoon of uncertainty. My heart drummed in my chest, drowning out the earlier giggle. I couldn't tell if it was still there, lurking just beyond my perception, or if I'd imagined it all. I took a step back, barely feeling the cold floor underfoot, my eyes straining to cut through the dark. "Dr. Morrison?" I whispered, dread creeping into my voice. No response. Panic bubbled up inside me as I remembered the way we had come. The flickering light from earlier, that had felt like safety, was now replaced by shadows that seemed to stretch and twist. Suddenly, I felt it again. A chill, this time creeping from the base of my spine to my skull. It was as if an unseen presence hovered just behind me. I whirled around, fists clenched, ready to confront whatever I might find. Except all I saw was darkness. "Dr. Morrison!" I yelled, my voice breaking the stillness. I tried to will him back, hoped that he'd step out of the shadows. But there was nothing. The air felt thick with anticipation, and a sense of isolation settled over me. Had I lost him? Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to move, edging forward into the unknown. The memory of that ghostly figure burned in my mind. Why was it grinning? Was it mocking me? I had no choice but to press on, hoping to find answers, or at least some sliver of light. As I inched further down the corridor, I noticed a door slightly ajar to my right. The archives. Gravity pulled me towards it. Surely there were records or files that could explain the strange occurrences. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to turn back, but my curiosity outweighed my fear. I pushed the door open, just enough to slip through, the creak of the hinges swallowed by the darkness. The air inside felt colder, and I shivered as I stepped into the small room. Rows of shelves towered over me, filled with boxes and old medical records. The light from the hall barely illuminated the first few feet, and I reached for my phone, desperate for its glow. The screen flickered to life as I switched on the flashlight setting. A beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing dust-covered surfaces and scattered files. My heart raced as I began to sift through the papers, neon warnings flashing before my eyes. But as I moved deeper, something caught my attention. A notebook, leather-bound and worn, lay open on the table. I leaned closer, the flashlight revealing a series of notes that sent chills down my spine. They described experiments on patients, strange occurrences, patients noting shadows, laughter, things no one else could see. My pulse quickened. Had Dr. Morrison known? I scanned the entries, wanting to learn more. Then, a sudden noise behind me made me jump. I turned quickly, the beam of light landing on another figure. Not the one I had seen before, but a man dressed in an old lab coat, his eyes wide and hollow. "Help me," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper but charged with urgency. Before I could respond, darkness engulfed the room, snuffing out my light. My heart raced as the darkness wrapped around me. I couldn't move, fear rooting me to the spot. Panic threatened to claw its way out, but I forced myself to breathe. I could feel the oppressive weight of silence, and then, barely perceptible, a soft rustle in the air. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "Please," the figure urged, but his plea was swallowed by the thick shadows. The disembodied urgency in his tone sent shivers down my spine. I fumbled with my phone, swiping to turn the light back on, praying that the screen wouldn't fail me now. After a heartbeat that felt like an eternity, the light flickered back to life, illuminating the man. But something flickered behind him too. I squinted, trying to see past him into the dark. "I can't," he began, but then abruptly froze, his features twisting in a mix of fear and recognition. "Get out!" he shouted suddenly, his voice rising in pitch. The urgency transformed into a wild desperation that made the hair on my arms stand up. I took a step back, instinctively fearing what was behind me. Before I could comprehend what was happening, the light in my phone flickered again. In that instant, I caught a glimpse of something dark and shifting emerging from the corner of the room. It was an elongated shadow that seemed to crawl across the floor, reaching for me with an ominous intent. My skin prickled, and I swallowed hard, panic pushing me to the edge. "Run!" the man screamed, his face contorting with dread. But I didn't need to be told twice. My legs propelled me forward, darting for the door. I could hear his rasping breath behind me, but I didn't look back. I burst into the corridor, the strangeness of the archive room immediately replaced by the stark fluorescent lights. Heart thudding, I sprinted down the hall, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My mind churned with questions. Who was the man? What was the shadow? As I ran, I stumbled over my own feet, almost crashing into the wall. Then I saw it, the flicker of lights around the corner, the faint buzz of activity, promising people where there might be safety. I rushed toward those lights, but as I approached, I could hear laughter, the same childlike giggle that had echoed before. Terror knotted in my chest. That laughter wasn't just a memory, it felt real. It twisted through my thoughts, pulling me back as my instincts screamed to take cover. Somehow, I was drawn toward it. I skittered past the patients' rooms, catching glimpses of their sleeping forms. The shadows danced along the walls, but there was something more ominous at play. It was like a game, and I was trapped in the middle. "Dr. Morrison!" I shouted again, hoping he would answer. Yet the laughter only grew louder, swirling around me in a cruel echo. I stopped short at a door that stood slightly ajar, pulsing with an unsettling energy. The shadows seemed to gather around it, thickening as if they were alive. An instinct deep within me cried out to run, but curiosity pulled me closer. Then everything shifted. An ear-shattering crash echoed down the hall. I turned in horror just as I heard a voice from inside the room call my name. The fear ignited in my veins again. Whatever was going on here, it was far from over. I took a deep breath and stepped towards the door, my heart racing. I had to know what awaited me inside. I crossed the threshold, the door creaking open as if it held secrets I wasn't ready to hear. Heart pounding, I flicked my phone's light into the room. The light revealed a small office cluttered with papers, forgotten coffee cups, and a heavy fog of unease that seemed to breathe within the walls. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. The laughter had faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. The corridor behind me whispered with a soft breeze, urging me to leave, but I took a cautious step forward instead. That's when I noticed the wall. At first, I thought it was just peeling paint, but the more closely I looked, the more it resembled hands reaching out, merging into the old plaster. A chill swept through me. "Who's there?" I tried again, though I wished I hadn't. I felt exposed, like prey in a wide-open field. The seconds stretched as I waited, and then I heard it. A faint whisper, barely audible. "Help!" A child's voice, weak and desperate. My stomach dropped. "Where are you?" I asked, voice rising in panic. I scanned the room. There were no obvious places for someone to hide, but something was undeniably wrong. Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught movement, a shadow racing across the floor. My breath hitched as it vanished behind a desk. I stepped back, heart crashing in my chest, but curiosity was a dangerous thing. I took a step towards it, and the shadows reacted, twisting and curling as if alive. "Show yourself!" My voice cracked, the authority I tried to project sounding hollow, even to me. The room fell silent again, and I stood there, trembling. I felt like I was intruding in a terrible secret. I pushed the papers around on the desk, searching for anything that might explain the strange happenings, when my hand brushed against something cold. A photograph. I held it up. It showed a group of children, all smiles, faces bright with joy. But one child in particular caught my eye. She was standing apart from the others, eyes wide and fixed on the camera, a look of deep fear shadowing her young features. That look mirrored what I felt deep within. It sent a wave of dread through me. Then I noticed something scribbled on the back of the photo. My heartbeat quickened as I read. "She sees them." I pulled back, realizing too late that the room had shifted again. The shadows were thicker now, pressing closer, and the air felt charged with a presence that simmered just beyond my comprehension. Suddenly, the light in my phone flickered, and the laughter returned, filling the room, echoing from every corner. It was high-pitched, taunting. "Get out!" A voice rushed past my ear, as though someone else was right behind me. I spun around, but the office was empty. Then I saw it, looming in the doorway, a figure darker than the shadows around it, waiting, watching. My instincts screamed to flee, but I was frozen again, feeling the weight of whatever lurked there, the laughter intensifying until I thought I might snap. My fingers tightened around the photograph as I stumbled back toward the door, feeling as though I were being pulled by unseen hands. I had to know what was happening, but now I was certain of one thing. Whatever the children had seen, it wasn't just a figment of imagination. I took off into the hallway, adrenaline surging through me, but I knew one truth. I was not alone. I ran down the hallway, my legs feeling like lead. The laughter faded behind me, but the air still felt thick with an unseen presence. My heart thundered in my ears, drowning out the echoes of my footsteps as I raced toward the dim light at the other end of the corridor. My thoughts swirled. What had I just experienced? Who were those children? And what was that thing watching me? As I reached the exit, I paused to catch my breath. The weight of the photograph was heavy in my pocket. I needed to get out, but the haunting image of the terrified girl nagged at me. I had to find answers. I stepped outside, the chill of the night air hitting me like a slap. I instinctively glanced back at the building. The shadows danced in the windows, and for a moment I thought I saw her. The girl from the photo, her wide-eyed gaze locked onto mine. I stumbled back, pushing the door open again. I was drawn in, the desire to uncover the truth overpowering my fear. The office was still. Everything had returned to a haunting stillness. I flicked on my phone's light, determined to find anything else that could explain what was going on. My pulse raced not only from fear, but also from an eagerness to delve deeper. I scanned the room, looking for anything that could lead me to the girl or the source of the whispers. The desk cluttered with papers caught my attention again. I rifled through the sheets. Most were mundane notes, but then I found a small journal wedged beneath a stack of invoices. I opened it, and my breath caught as I read the entries. They were dated from years ago, chronicling the lives of children from the neighborhood. But as I flipped through, the mood shifted. Mentions of the shadows grew more frequent. In one entry, I saw the scrawled words, "We can't see them anymore. They only come for the ones who still look." I felt a prickle of ice creep down my spine. The shadows? What did they want? A thought hit me, heavy and unsettling. What if the children hadn't vanished at all? Suddenly, the air shifted again, turning heavy. The temperature dropped, and I felt it. Something had entered the room. I swung around, heart racing, and saw it. The figure stood in the doorway, more defined now, its form a swirling mass of darkness. The whisper returned, but this time it was clearer. "Help us, please." Without thinking, I stumbled backward, my eyes locked on it. The journal slipped from my hand, crashing to the floor with a finality that echoed in the silence. I felt trapped between the figure and the door, the night outside now feeling like an unreachable refuge. "Who are you?" I managed to croak out, sounding more like a child than I ever had. The figure shuddered, seeming to pulse as if responding to my fear. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered out, plunging me into total blackness. I was alone, and yet I could sense it. The presence was still there, lurking in the depths of the room, waiting. I couldn't breathe. The weight of my own uncertainty pressed painfully against me. Would I dare to move further into the unknown? What might I discover? And most terrifying of all, would I ever make it out? The darkness gripped me, an unyielding pressure closing in on all sides. I felt like I was drowning, caught beneath a weight I couldn't fathom. Panic simmered just beneath the surface, clawing at my chest. I could barely breathe, each inhale a struggle against the suffocating void surrounding me. "Get out!" I shouted into the abyss, but my voice was swallowed by silence, my words lost in the encroaching dark. Then I heard it again, the childlike laughter intertwined with a wailing sob, rising and falling like the tide. It felt alive, echoing around me, pulling me deeper into the shadows. I couldn't tell if it came from within me or beyond. Perhaps they were one and the same. Adrenaline surged through my veins as I stumbled back, feeling my way through the terrifying emptiness, searching for a way out. Suddenly the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the figure I had encountered before. It loomed larger now, more defined in the harsh light. The shadows that clung to it danced wildly, like restless spirits seeking escape. My heart raced as I felt its gaze on me, an unsettling mix of malice and yearning. Help us! The words poured forth from the figure, echoing with the voices of many children. They were woven together in a haunting chorus, their desperation palpable. "What do you want from me?" I cried, desperation lacing my voice. "I don't know how." But just as quickly as the light had returned, it flickered again, casting the room into a strobing madness. I felt the shadows creeping towards me, each pulse of light making their outlines stretch and twist ominously. This wasn't just a decision about fear anymore. It was about confronting something raw and unexplainable. Desperate, I took a step forward. "I won't leave you," I shouted, each word an anchor to my resolve. Whatever had happened to the children, I had to believe I could save them, whatever form that salvation would take. Beyond the flickering chaos, I caught a glimpse of the girl, the one from the photo. Her features were clearer now, the same bright smile juxtaposed with terror in her wide eyes. She extended a hand toward me, pleading, as if she believed I could reach her. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely breaking through the wailing cries around us. "Help us find peace." I felt a strange surge of courage mixed with dread. The shadows pulsed as if urging me forward. Perhaps facing whatever was in this shadow had the power to release them, to free not just the children, but my restless mind. With determination, I forged ahead, the darkness curling at my heels. "Show me!" I shouted into the light, ready to embrace whatever lay beyond. "Show me what you cannot say!" The laughter crescendoed, the dissonance morphing into a solid wave that struck against my chest. It felt like being pulled into a whirlpool, overcoming the resistance I had fought for so long. Then the shadows grew sharper, and I felt myself spiraling down, deeper than I had ever ventured before. Suddenly, I was in a different space, a vast expanse tinged with an ethereal light that cast everything in strange silhouettes. The familiar hospital now stood far away, as if it were an ancient relic lost in time. I could hear whispers weaving through the air, threading themselves together like strands of a tapestry. I found myself standing in a playground, overgrown yet untouched by time. The colorful slides and swings stood as silent sentinels to the laughter of children long gone. My heart twisted painfully as I felt their remnants surround me, their essence woven into the very fabric of this place. But where were the children? "You can't leave," one of the figures murmured, blending into the light around me. "You're all trapped here." "Who are you?" I demanded, but my voice sounded weak even to my ears. They looked at me, hollow expressions etched into their features, faces of children who had once been full of life. "We were taken by her," they whispered in unison, confusion flickering across their faces like reflections in water. My blood ran cold. The shadows shifted, revealing glimpses of the figure that had haunted me, the darkness coalescing into a more formidable presence. "The Guardian," the children said. "She keeps us safe." I trembled, caught between dread and resolve. "But you deserve to be free," I insisted, hurting with the truth of their betrayal. As if summoned, the figure emerged from the shadows, its form twisting into a shape that echoed the little girl's image, the one I'd seen in the hallway of the hospital. A darkened silhouette marred by an insatiable hunger. "Free?" it echoed, voice like shattered glass. They would face the world without my protection. They'd fade away, forgotten. "No," I protested, my voice stronger now, fueled by their lost potential. "They deserve to be remembered, to live their lives. You can't keep them here forever." The darkness surged, ripping through the air with violent intent. I felt it intruding on my thoughts, drawing me into its overpowering embrace. "You will join them," it threatened, its voice a soft caress marred by malice. But as I faced it, I remembered the faith of the children, how I had wished to save them. I pushed back, forcing my will against the tide, using the strength of conviction. "Let them go," I cried, each syllable a solemn vow. "Let them live." The world around me began to shatter, the playground dissolving into particles of light that illuminated the darkness. The figure roared, fluttering in anguish as the children's whispers swirled around us. "No," You cannot. I felt warmth spreading through me, igniting the shadows, pushing them away. The presence pulled at my focus, desperate to reclaim its lost guardians. Help us, echoed softly from the children as their forms, once more brightened, began to coalesce around me. The dark presence recoiled, shifting to a deep, echoing shriek that enveloped me, overtaking my senses. I felt a lightness in the air, as if the world were shedding old layers. The shadows fluttered around as I pressed my palms near my heart, declaring, "You are free." With that declaration, the energy surged like lightning, dispelling the darkness all at once. The echoing cries faded into a triumphant hush, and a sweet clarity came over me. The figure retreated into the light, leaving behind a lingering whisper, "Choose carefully." Then in an instant, everything twisted again, and I found myself back in the hospital hallway, standing in a world unchanged. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, unchanged and oblivious. But I was not the same. The haunting whispers had softened to a mere echo in my bones, the weight of the photograph in my pocket now a reminder. The uncertainty of the unknown surrounded me, but the memory of their faces lingered in my mind. I moved to the exit, glancing over my shoulder one last time. Somehow, I felt their presence still, if only faintly. But I knew this. I might never fully understand what happened that night. But I had witnessed a battle of existence, one that bound their pasts to this present. And even though questions remained, pieces of the puzzle scattered throughout my memories, I understood one truth. I was forever changed. I stepped into the cool night air, feeling a sense of relief, and though I was uncertain of what lay ahead, I held tightly to hope.